Welcome to the County Manager's Report. I'm Lloyd Higuera. With me is Douglas County Manager Jim Nichols. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. And we're going to talk about a couple of December meetings, the December 4th meeting and the December 18th meeting. And at that December 4th meeting, commissioners did approve a ceremonial acceptance of the new Douglas County Community and Senior Center, declaring it open for business on Saturday, December 6th. And open it did, and what a great day that was. You were a big part of it. You were the MC, weren't you?
Yes, that was my role, and it was a great day, a great event. I was really happy to be a part of it. I was proud to be a part of it. And as I said during the event, it's not often that a county manager can come on board in an organization and within 3 months be opening a brand new facility like that, so I'm sure I'm the envy of a lot of other folks. It was a great grand opening. We had lots of speeches, lots of celebration. Tours galore for the citizens who wanted to take a look for the first time. And as you said, it's now open for business, very popular. We're getting a lot of customers coming in and joining us, and the facility is seeing some great use, so it appears to have hit the mark for this community.
Absolutely, and yeah, I can see this facility becoming really the center of the community. Events will be held there. People will be using it for the athletic part of it. The seniors, of course, their beautiful new senior center. So yeah, it covers all the bases. That's for sure. And yeah, it is open. And if somehow you haven't seen it yet, you should stop by. And is it open 7 days a week, or is it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And so yeah, they can really stop by anytime and walk through and see what is going on there. It really is incredible.
Right.
Okay, so we got the Senior Center open. Commissioners also at that meeting did hear a report on the flooding of July and August of 2014, and they directed staff to evaluate the issue further and look for funding for further flood mitigation. So maybe if you give us kind of a wrap-up. That was kind of a long report, but maybe the short version.
Well, the short version is we had been directed at a prior meeting by the board to come back and give an overview of what had been done and how the flooding situations had been addressed. So we provided them with an update on the maintenance work that was done, the steps still being taken, and then what options we have moving forward. And really the two directives we received as a result of this presentation are, first off, they want us to evaluate whether the county should take over maintenance, at least the cleaning maintenance, for private driveway culverts throughout the county. We staff had brought that up as a possibility, and the board is interested in hearing more about it, but they want to know the costs, the impacts, and how it'll affect the other work that we do. And then the other directive we received was to determine what funding sources there are to address future drainage needs throughout the county and how we can best leverage those funding sources, and our recommendations to the board as to how we should fund the drainage work in the future.
And of course, funding is a big part of it, isn't it?
Right.
Getting that funding to do all that.
Right, because right now, drainage and flooding response, those tasks are part of our other, they compete with other work that we do. And so it makes it very difficult. And whereas if we had funding sources that were directed specifically to drainage, then that would make life a lot easier, and we would have the guaranteed resources to address the needs of the community.
And of course, it wasn't a budgeted item. You know, it's Mother Nature. You know, dropped a little rain on us. So, yeah, that adds that impact to it too. Okay, so we'll be hearing more about this as the weeks go on, I'm sure.
Right. Correct.
Commissioners approved an appointment to the Minden Town Board. That's to fill a vacancy that Steve Thaler will be leaving that board and moving over to the Douglas County Board of Commissioners.
Yes.
Who did they wind up appointing there?
Well, as you said, I'll be inheriting a new board member effective the first of the year, and in his place for the town of Minden will be William Seligny. He'll be starting with them as a midterm replacement for Commissioner-elect Steve Thaler.
Okay. All right. Well, congratulations to him. We have some more appointments to talk about later on the program. Commissioners also made a presentation, or heard a presentation, I should say, the annual report on economic development performance indicators. And what did they indicate?
Well, I'll tell you that this was some very good news, and without going into all the specifics and the details, one of the highlights that was brought up is that last year we had a mixed bag of economic indicators. There were some positive, some not so positive. But this year, all signs point to continued recovery for the county, and we're on the road to economic recovery, and we're seeing a great deal of evidence that economic prosperity is headed our way in the future.
Great. Good news.
Yes.
Also, commissioners gave final approval to that merger we've been talking about for quite a while now,
Right.
East Fork Paramedic District into the East Fork Fire Protection District. So
Right.
this is really kind of paperwork,
Right.
but it
This
finally
wraps it
was
up.
accomplished.
Yes, this wraps it up. I believe the board will not need to hear or approve any further items related to that merger. I believe it's now official, final, and as
Done.
you said, nothing else we need to be talking about in the future on this.
Okay. And can you give us an update on the progress of the search for the new Douglas County Clerk Treasurer? How's that going?
It's actually going very well. Things are on track. Well, I should say they're on track with one exception. I had been scheduled to bring this slate of candidates back to the board in January, and between holidays and vacations, it just isn't going to happen because one of the important steps that we included in this process is a public reception for the candidates. To fit that in and then have the time necessary to come back to the board, it just wasn't going to make either of the January meetings. So unfortunately, it won't happen until February. But with that, even with that delay in there, the process itself is going very well. We do have 3 what I call semifinalists who've been selected by the advisory committee. Those 3 semifinalists are Kitty DeSocio, Kathy Lewis, and Eileen Thomas. There were a total of 10 candidates who applied under this, I guess, reopening of the position. All 10 have been informed of their status in this process. And right now we're scheduled to do that public reception as well as interviews with the advisory committee. And that will be happening on January 20th. And that will be at the community center, community and senior center over at the senior dining hall. That's where we're going to be hosting that. It'll be the evening of the 20th.
See, I told you it was becoming the center of the community.
You are right.
I knew. Yeah, so people will have a chance at that event to speak with the candidates.
Yes.
They'll make an address to the public, I
Correct.
guess, right? And then I guess everybody gets kind of a scorecard and they
Right.
write down their comments, and that
Exactly.
all goes into the process.
Correct.
Very similar to the process you went through when
Mm-hmm.
you were applying for a county manager.
Exactly,
So-
and so we did, though there are some differences, we did try to mirror some of the aspects of the county manager recruitment process because the public and the board seemed to appreciate how it went and the transparency that it included, and so we're trying to do the same thing now with the clerk treasurer position.
Okay. And your best guess, when do you think a clerk treasurer will be installed? Do you think
Well,
February?
Well, it's going to be, that's a little up in the air because I would say that, well, I can guarantee that a slate of candidates will be brought to the board at the first meeting in February.
Okay.
The board will then have different options. They can choose one. They can decide that they want to interview all the candidates, whoever are brought forward. They can do those interviews in public or one-on-one interviews, or they can decide they don't like any of the candidates and they can start the process over, which is a possibility. So the installment process or time, I can't guarantee yet. It'll really depend on what the board thinks of the final list of candidates that they receive.
Okay. So we should see something in February
Definitely, yes.
at the meeting. Okay.
Correct.
Well, that pretty well covers the December 4th meeting of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. Let's move on to December 18. That meeting was up at Lake Tahoe.
Mm-hmm.
And commissioners were looking at 2 resolutions at that meeting establishing certain water rates, fees, and charges for the Skyland, Cave Rock, and Upaway water systems. And what did commissioners decide there?
Well, before I jump into that, I will comment that was a very hotly debated set of subjects, hotly contested and very controversial. And really, the board said it very clearly. They were in a no-win situation because no matter what direction they went, there were going to be customers who were impacted and who were unhappy. There were a lot of folks who want to see consolidation of all water systems together. There are others who feel that would be inappropriate and want to see the separate systems remain separate. So after a lot of public comment and public input, the rates for both Skyland and Cave Rock Upaway were set for the next 2 years. So at least we have a little bit of a reprieve. The rates are lower than they had been previously. We did utilize some general fund assistance to help in lowering those rates. And my theory is that we've now bought ourselves 2 years to develop a long-term comprehensive plan on water rates for those systems. So this is just something that allows us to maintain and continue operating while we work on something bigger and longer term.
Well, considering the amount of years already invested, 2 more years really is a drop in the bucket.
Right, and the
This has
fact
been going on for a long time.
the fact that the customers will see a rate reduction, I think, is at least a small perk that they can look at with
Sure.
some happiness, despite maybe being displeased with the overall result.
Yeah. Okay. Commissioners accepted at the December 18th meeting more public comment on the 2015 Federal Housing and Urban Development Community Block Grant Program, Development Block. Well, it's a mouthful. And what are some of the projects being considered this year?
Well, we have 3 projects, and one change that was made from when the presentation, or when the topic was first brought to the board a few months ago, is that originally we had thought these projects needed to be ranked, but we since have learned, because they're in different categories, there's no ranking necessary, and just purely board support was adequate. So with that, the board did support the 3 projects. Those are Senior Center and Senior Daycare Outdoor Patio Improvement Project. Another one is the James Lee Park Community Center Master Plan. And then the third one is the Micro Enterprise Technical Assistance Program.
Okay.
So those 3 will be going forward with the county's blessing or the county's support to see where they qualify in the CDBG grant application process.
Yeah, we had a pretty good year last year. All of the grants that Douglas County put out there were all granted. So, maybe that'll happen again.
We're hoping for...
Lightning can strike twice, maybe.
Hoping for magic in the bottle.
There you go. Commissioners also appointed 2 applicants to the Genoa Town Board. Who was appointed there?
Right. This was another appointment process, as we had just talked about for Minden. The 2 new board members for Genoa are Timothy DeTurk and Linda Birdwell. So both of those individuals will be starting their terms at the first of the year.
Okay, very good. Commissioners were also presented with audited financial statements for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2014. And how did our audit look?
Well, as you said, we presented the audited report to the board, and the difference this year is that we presented a comprehensive annual financial report, sometimes known as a CAFR. And this is a little bit more in-depth an audit than we've done historically. And actually we'll be submitting this for consideration for an award in the future, because it really demonstrates, in our opinion, the county's fiscal management and the way that we address our financial situation. But to answer your question of how did it look, there were a number of findings, as there have been in the past. Some of them were I'll say repeats, that things that weren't quite addressed as adequately as necessary, some new things. Though we had a number of findings, there wasn't anything significant, nothing that pointed to any mismanagement of funds, more or less some good housekeeping suggestions and mandates, that all of which we as staff support, and inform the board that we would be following through with the suggestions made in the audit.
Great. Okay. Well, also at that meeting, commissioners approved a tax refund for residents of the Round Hill General Improvement District. And what was the reason for that tax refund?
Well, previously, the Round Hill General Improvement District had enacted an ad valorem tax. Later on, it was found that the imposition of this tax was improper, and therefore they determined that it was necessary to issue a refund. And that's what this item was about, was authorizing the refund of this tax. And it'll take a little bit of time, because there are lots of details to how this was done, and if a homeowner receives the refund themselves or if it goes to a mortgage company, there are lots of little nuances that have to be evaluated. But the board did approve it, and staff will be moving forward with those refunds.
Okay, very good. Well, that pretty well covers the December 18th meeting of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. Of course, there'll be a whole slate of new meetings coming up in 2015, but the very first meeting of 2015 is on a different date. It's not on a Thursday, is it?
Right, correct. Our first meeting in January, which would normally be the first Thursday of the month, which would be January 1st. Obviously, that's a holiday, also by state law. So we'll be holding it on Monday, January 5th, in light of the holiday and the requirements mandated by the state. So it'll be the normal time, the normal location, but it will be on a different day. This is a one-time change that folks can expect us to go back to our normal schedule following this January meeting.
Okay, so Monday, January 5th, 1 p.m. in Minden for the first meeting of 2015, then the schedule gets back on the regular track.
Correct.
Well, Jim, I want to thank you for being here and sharing all the information about the December 4th and December 18th meetings of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. That's what we do here on the County Manager's Report. I'm Lloyd Higuera for County Manager Jim Nichols, and we'll see you next time on the County Manager's Report.